diddle-o, up and down, diddle-o, diddle up and down, diddle-o, diddle up and down, diddle-o, diddle lay down, diddle-o, diddle up and down, diddle-o, diddle up and down, diddle-o, diddle up and down.
All right, so where we are sitting on this most recent brewing. First off, hey everybody. My last batch, just to recap, I'm trying to nail down what I would call like a just everyday drinker. In the past, I have fermented with USO5 like most people, but I've actually tried it at the lower end of the temperature scale. I fermented this particular ale at 13 degrees Celsius with, I gave it a couple day diacetyl bump. I think I went up to about 18C, maybe 18.5. I think it was 18.5. But yeah, so what that's going to do for me is you'll get these nice fruity peachy esters. I've done it in the past. I know it works. But this is the first time I've done it with my fermentation chamber, so I'm hoping for better results, like a nice clean beer. The grain bill is past me right now. If you'd like to know what grain bill I used on it, I'll add it in the description or a comment at a later point. But at the same time, I also had this idea, because I tend to want to just make the most of a brew day. When I brew, I end up usually just chucking what's left at the bottom of the kettle after the chill. You probably might have the same thing. There's this hazy, murky, I call it kettle trub, that's left behind. In the past, I've always dumped this. And this time, where I had a lot of flaked ingredients and there seemed like there was more than usual, I decided to rack it into a 3-gallon fermenter. And being me, I just can't keep things going simple to see how it'll turn out. I also pitched this with USO4 and I fermented it at the 13 degrees Celsius. I don't know much information on the low end for cold temperature scale for this. I know at the higher end, you'll get some bready notes and just give some of that British character. But anyway, without further ado, I hope you can see it. The 3-gallon fermenter is actually just kettle trub. It was all hazy, murky, basically that was useless. But this is about 3 weeks later. I got a picture from day 1, day 2. You can see, I probably have this posted in the beginning slideshow. But here it is. As you can see, all the trub and all yeast and stuff, it's settled to the bottom. Here's my index finger. So it's probably, I'd say probably about 2 inches, maybe a little bit more that's lost on the bottom, but the rest is wort. We're going to see what the tastings are like for this at a later point, if there's anyone with interest. But if you are into experimenting, this little bit of extra captured wort, which would have been lost, could be a great place for you to do that. Yeah, so I am going to do some bottling now because I'm not cool enough to keg yet. And we will see how this turns out. Wish me luck. All right. For any of those still bottling, yay. Just a couple little tips that I usually go by. Some people don't, but that's okay. Everyone does their own thing. When I wash my beer bottles, I always store them upside down. Reason for this is kind of obvious when you're thinking about it. There's no chance of anything kind of floating in and just settling at the bottom of your bottles. You just take a quick rinse before you're ready to bottle. In a pinch, which I do sometimes, I don't even wash them. I just basically take any beer bottles I know that have been stored upside down in my nice cozy little downstairs dungeon here, and I go with them. Tip number 1. Next is, excuse me while I grab this, I always give my bottles a shake and I tip them upside down. Now, you may ask why I do that. When you're capping, a lot of times you're going to have some beers that have no seal. So I haven't had a bottle of beer in, I'd say, 3 years that I have lost a seal on, but in the past I have. Since I started doing this, shaking it and holding it upside down, checking for leaks, it's been all good. And the last thing, bench cappers are great. I gotta say that, first and foremost. But if you're like me, I enjoy a lot of different beers, which means I have a lot of different sized beer bottles around. And I get donations from people. So I almost always use, because I do have a bench capper, it's up behind my Prima bucket now, but I almost always still use my handy dandy old wing capper. Labor of love, you just got less hassle of changing heights, all that great stuff. Anyway, continue on. I'm about a case into my bottling. Wish me luck. Alright. Alright, to button this one up. That's on it. We got some lovely color from the recipe. I neglected to use any fining agents, no gelatin, nothing like that. There's a little bit of haze where there's a lot of flaked, and it was fermented a little bit colder. But I'm not too worried about that. Let's see if I can clear that up a little bit. There we go. But my Vienna gave it a nice little orangey golden color, which I love. Head retention's pretty damn good on this sucker. This is the USO 5. Really early yet, but I think I got a hit here. The wort, I don't know if you ever tasted a wort that you just couldn't stop sipping on. I had to force myself not to keep sipping on this guy. Don't know if I got my peach esters. As you know, I tried, but we shall see when this thing comes through in carbonation. A lot of times that'll stir it up. So that's the USO 5. Let's see if I can get a side by side here. Pardon the camera angle. And here is the trub. Okay. You see it's the same sort of color. This one here is a little bit browner. I don't know if that's the USO 5 or the fact of what it is. I actually managed to keep the trub out of it. So basically, like I said, it's a win. I have for volume, this was a 5-gallon batch. If I didn't save the trub beers, I would have had, what was it, 4 dozen and 9 beer. 4 dozen and 10 beer, which is a good haul, but you know, you want around 5 dozen. With the trub experiment, I ended up with an extra case and a half plus 3 beer. So a case and 9 beer. Flavor notes on this. There's a little bit more residual sweetness, both finished around the same, 1.005, and it was a low gravity on it. I had some issues. It was 1.041. You can do your math. I think it's probably like a 4.2% beer or something like that. But I am calling this a win. There's no off flavors. The only thing I might get on the back end, and I won't know more until she carbs, is there might be a little bit of astringency there that wasn't in this one, but it's very, very smooth where I ferment it at a low temperature. Not getting any of the bready character you hear people mention with this particular yeast if you ferment at a higher scale, but it's just a smooth, pretty well like a lager. So we're going to see how this goes, but as you can see side by side, USO 4 13 degrees, USO 5 13 degrees. There's color to the back of that. See? Alright, anyways. I'm amusing myself here, which is great. Keep you guys posted on, I guess, tastings in the future, but had a lot of fun with this. Alright, wish me luck. I'm now going to try my Wi-Fi controller. Oh, yeah. After the cleaning, of course. I'm going to set all this up, and you will probably hear about it in a future update. Okay.